Trigger on! Welcome, D-Roll, to the Duckface Diaries. We are a World Trigger read-through podcast aiming to discuss the World Trigger manga volume by volume. I'm Wensleydale, Cheddar.
And I'm Hoven with an H, and this week we'll be tackling volume 4 of the World Trigger manga, which covers chapters 26 to 34, and if you're following along with the anime, that's episodes 14 to 17. So, Wensleydale, how are you doing badly this week?
I am doing absolutely horribly. I mean, the police are arresting queer activists in my country. There's a celebration of the anniversary of a huge anti-fascist insurrection going on, and people are burning rainbow flags in it. So yeah, this is a great country to live in. How are you doing?
Hoping that you get to move out of that country very soon, and also pretty jazzed to discuss this volume. Which, shall we get into it?
Yeah, today's agenda will be, we will recap quickly the 4th volume, then we'll get to our general thoughts, random observations, then spoiler corner, of course. I've actually got a few spoilery things to talk about.
So do I.
Then we'll answer a few of your questions. I think we just got one this time, so it might be a shorter episode, but yeah. Still, this is a great volume to discuss, so yeah, let's get into it.
Alright. So, Usami explains the inside workings of border triggers to Osamu and Yuma. As she explains the various types of attacker triggers, we cut back to the fight between Jin and, Conserver Squad, conveniently demonstrating each weapon type as she describes it. In short, Scorpions are light, flexible, and break easily. Kagetsu are heavy, strong, and can extend its attack in what I like to call the thinking man's Getsu Gatensho. And so, fearing the wrath of composed beefcake over at Tamakoma base, Tachikawa opts to divide their focus, having himself, the snipers and Kazuma squad take on Jin, while the others focus on stalling Arashiyama squad. Meanwhile, the team I shall dub the General Democrats anticipate this and begin to form a counter-strategy. The squads meet, and Miwa asks Arashiyama both theirs and Jin's motives. Arashiyama simply asserts that Jin must know what he's doing and offers to fight in his stead if they're not convinced. Izumi feigns ignorance at the presence of Arashiyama squad sniper Ken Satori in order to draw out his location. Miwa then sends in Yoniya to take him out, but Gitora intercepts him, taking their fight to the block of flak that Satori is in. Kazuma squad and Tachikawa still struggle to land a hit on Jin due to his future sight ability, and he remains constantly on the retreat. Finding the endeavour of trying to hit him pointless, Toma leaves to join Izumi, a decision that Tachikawa seems to support. After an explanation from Usami of the more defensive Raygust trigger, it's revealed that Tachikawa is the top Kagetsu user and that he used to be Jin's rival. Jin himself helped develop the Scorpion with Border's engineers in order to even the odds between them, though ultimately Tachikawa had accrued more wins. Their rivalry was put on a standstill when Jin acquired his Black Trigger in a competition against 20 other border agents. Tachikawa did not partake because he wasn't compatible with the trigger. Back at the fight, Kazuma theorizes that Jin is trying to slowly whittle down their Trion, forcing them to leave rather than actively beating them, and thus ruffle fewer feathers at HQ. After some goading from Kikuchihara, Kazuma makes the call to head straight to Border HQ, leading Jin out to bring out Plan B. He unleashes his Black Trigger, Fujin, and takes out the off-guard Kikichihara in the process. The other groups notice the bailout. Narasaka comments to himself that such a move was uncharacteristic of Jin. Kazuma and Utagawa activate their Chameleon Trigger, fading into invisibility. As Tachikawa attacks Jin, Kazuma explains that the Fujin can send out attacks to wherever the user can see, and the amount of remaining splashes is represented by the ribbons of light emanating from it. Trying to keep close in order to diminish this functionality and basically render it a normal blade, Tachikawa is lured into a house's garage where Jin turns him into a Conserver Squad shish kebab, attacking on all fronts. The other two attackers rush in on Utagawa's assumption that he's down to 0, but Kazuma realizes at the last minute that Jin still has 2 attacks left, one of which he uses to dispatch Utagawa. Tachikawa, still in commission, attempts to slash Jin through Kazuma, but a well-placed slash from Jin takes out Tachikawa's attacking arm and Kazuma's leg. After all parties notice Utagawa's bailout, we get another very conveniently timed Usami lecture on the gunner's triggers. In short, asteroids are powerful bullets, meteors are explosives, and vipers are guided projectiles.
Yeah, right. There's just one small problem. Hi, Wensleydale here, editing this from the future. So, Hound is the guided bullet, and Viper is the one where you can change the trajectory before hitting the opponent. So yeah. I expected better of you, Hoven. You're not a true World Trigger fan.
Miwa manages to weigh down Arashiyama with lead bullets, but then he teleports behind Miwa, leading him and Mitsuru to get the jump on him, heavily depleting his Trion. Back in the block of flats, Kitora manages to trap Yosuke with wires, destroying his Trion supply. But then, in a last-ditch mood, he drags her out the window, trying to get Izumi to fire on them. But then, Tokieda shows up to block Izumi's bullets with his shield. But then, Toma snipes out Tokieda mid-fall. Yeah, my resident nitpick of this volume, which I'm not trying to make a recurring segment, but I do have one here, is that there's a few too many plays in this action beat, and I feel like it could have been trimmed down a tad. Still, Kitora lands unscathed, while the other two fallers bail out. She and Arashiyama retreat into the side streets, and after a brief stalemate, they check their radar, and see that Izumi and Miwa are heading for Jin. Kitora immediately works out that this is a trap, but they may plan a move regardless. Arashiyama follows them out to an empty playground where he's swamped on all sides. Conserver Squad are certain that Kitora is preparing a surprise attack on them, but mistake who the target is. Cue beheading of Toma with Kitora's temporary scorpion leg. Two more bailouts occur in the distance, and a voice comes over the intercom telling Miwa the fight is over.
So, Jin finishes Miwa and Tachikawa off with Fujin, but the latter says that they have experience with his Black Trigger now, and they'll be able to beat him within 3 weeks and kill Yuma, and take the Black Trigger. We cut to Miwa's side where they see the top agents have bailed out. Everyone else decides to end the battle as well, as they see that. As Satori bothers everyone about, "Ha ha ho! Did you see my double snipe?" Miwa says, "You'll regret sheltering a neighbor. Boy howdy does Jin not take them seriously." Arashiyama says Jin must be taking them seriously, and he must have had bad experiences with neighbors, since they killed his mum and teacher as well. Back over in HQ, Border staff is having a meeting, and Shinoda staunchly opposes Kido's faction taking the Black Trigger. We get the reveal that he's the most powerful normal trigger user in Border, as well as the one who instructed Tachikawa in his swordplay. In response to Shinoda's threat to stand against them if they decide to go on with the theft, Kido threatens to send Amo, the only other Black Trigger user in Border, one they build up to be an absolute monster who could destroy the city if he wanted to, and who isn't that particularly good for PR because he doesn't look human, apparently. Then Jin shows up to negotiate Yuma's admission, offering the Fujin, his Black Trigger, as a bargaining chip. Kido takes a deal, as they wouldn't even know if Yuma's trigger were compatible with any other agent. After some deliberation, they know that the Fujin is compatible with several agents at the very least. When Tachikawa and Kazama ask Jin about it, he says he's basically advertised Fujin through his fight with the Conserver Squad, and that he wants to support Yuma and let him have some fun while battling the other agents. He doesn't say so explicitly, but given the fact that it was the focus of the last volume, by the same token, he would kind of give Yuma reason to live. He also says to Kido that Yuma will be useful for his true objective, whatever that may be. He convinces Tachikawa that it's going to be fun because he can go back to solo rank wars now that he's no longer S rank, he's an A rank now. But Kazama is like, I hate fun. So finally, Jin collapses on his bed after returning to Tamakoma branch, and now that he's finally executed his plan behind the scenes, remarking the future is moving forward. So we cut to a montage of Mikumo Squad deciding on the final specialties with the seniors. Yuma choosing to be a Scorpion-based attacker, while Osamu decides to be a gunner, despite his low Trion.
Digimon Adventure Trion.
We pronounce this word very differently. I pronounce it in the same way Weekly Manga Recap do. You pronounce it in the same way the anime does it, so... yeah... Okay, just know that it's the same thing, you listeners out there. Osamu decides to be a gunner, despite his low Trion, and then Chika doesn't really decide on anything in particular, but Composer Beefcake says she She might be a good sniper because while she doesn't have the instincts, she practices a lot and is a good listener. Finally, the day of the enlistment comes. Shinoda and Arashiyama squads welcomed the new C ranks and split them up, Chika going along with the rest of the snipers and attackers, and gunners staying with Arashiyama. He explains the point system and how they need to get 4,000 in the chosen weapon to get to B rank, either in training sessions or sparring matches. Kitora shows up to observe the C ranker's simulated combat, with Osamu as she recognizes Yuma as a neighbor. Yuma beats the simulated simulated Banda in a record time of 0.6 seconds.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, the simulated banner, just like every time he beats her, he says, "Well, I see this as an absolute win."
I'm sorry. So yeah, it's a feat that even Kitora wasn't able to accomplish when she was first recruited, because most agents take a minute, while she took like 7 seconds. Osamu, meanwhile, wasn't even able to make it in time, ran out of time and failed. Ah, poor Osamu.
Oofed.
Kazama's squad comes to spectate and monitor the neighbor in the ranks, and so does Scruffy Hottie, who Kitora turns out to have the hots for. He asks Kitora to mentor Osamu, to which she reacts, "But I'm an A rank and he's a B rank." Yes, isn't that how mentoring works? So, moving on to the snipers, this is where Satori explains the sniper triggers. There are 3 kinds of sniper rifles: Eaglet, Lightning, and Ibis. The more Trion the agent has, the better the chosen property is. In the case of Eaglet, more Trions means bigger range. In the case of Lightning, more Trion means bigger reload speed. And in the case of Ibis, more Trion means more firepower. The B-rank sniper veteran Azuma notices Chika's advanced knowledge in sniping, that she knows she has to run away after a shot, noting her teacher must have extreme confidence in her, if he taught her that. And then Chika blows up a huge bloody hole in the base's outer wall, in a fantastic 2-page spread, stupefying everyone. Everyone wants to recruit Yuma to the team, after his display of quickness in battle, but Arashiyama says he's already with Osamu. So Kazama takes interest in that, and requests a training room. He wants to see what Jin's disciple is capable of. It might seem absurd that the number 3 attacker is challenging a C rank with a training trigger, but oh no, the one he's interested in fighting is Osamu Mikumo. Dum 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 dum. Alright, general thoughts?
So, this is probably my favourite volume so far. It does so much to establish a good power ceiling, set up the important details of the various triggers, and develop lots of the various A-rank characters. It definitely leaves off on much less of a hook than the prior ones. It does more to resolve the prior conflict than it does to really set up a new one. But that works fine.
Yeah, I thought this volume was great. I don't know why, but I think I enjoyed it a bit more in anime form. Maybe it's because of the ton of new characters introduced. Maybe it's because of the pacing of the fight. Just has more room to breathe. In the manga, the fight kind of seems over as soon as it's begun, and it's kind of left me wanting more. Plus, I think all the twists in the fight maybe work a bit better when they're just spread out a few seconds apart.
I mean, it was really only that one specific action beat, and I feel like could have maybe been fixed if Tokieda coming in to shield her hadn't kind of come out of nowhere so much. Like, it... You know, I generally speaking, I just feel like that was slightly stretching my suspension of disbelief of how much stuff could have gone on there without setting it up. Like, I feel like take that out and it would have gone a bit smoother for me.
I'm going to defend it a little, since this is one of my random observations, but I do love the explanation of the teleporter trigger kind of being imperfect since snipers can spot it.
Oh, is that what he was using? Oh, okay, now that makes so much more sense. I thought he just jumped up there, and I was like, that's really weird. How has he managed to do that and then fall along with them and not just, like, arc over?
It might be a bit OP overall, the teleporter trigger, but it has a few downsides when dealing with, like, experienced snipers like Toma. So it's also nice, like, seeing one squad who kind of specializes in that, just like Kazama squad specializes in stealth fighting. So yeah, I thought it was nice.
Yeah, not to mention, like, when it goes back to, like, the B squads, it focuses more on, like, C and B squad stuff. The teleport trigger isn't, I don't think it's used at all, is it?
Yeah, no.
Because this fight is very much, like I said, establishing the power ceiling of kind of, like, these are what the higher up agents can do if it's all of them in a fight.
Yeah.
Which of course gives Tamakoma's squad something to work towards. I think overall so I wanted to talk about how this volume goes into like different triggers and stuff. I really like the fact that with the Ray Gust and the Kogetsu, you have the option of either having a secondary trigger or like an optional additional thing to boost its power. It's kind of like two-handed or one-handed combat. And so, yeah, with the Kagetsu, you have a separate trigger in order to transform or extend the blade, and then with the Ray Gust, you have the optional thruster to accelerate it.
And then Scorpion just has a nice property in transforming it as you like it, which we're going to see used in very creative ways.
I mean, this volume already did. This was basically the volume of Scorpion. I think of all three of them, this got the most times to shine, especially with, like, Kazama shooting his blade through the ground to get Jin, and Kitora's scorpion leg.
I'm probably horribly biased after reading this a few times already, but I do love the idea of introducing the classification of the triggers during Jin's big fight. It manages to expose the mechanic in a natural way as exciting action is happening, and if the reader is not invested in Jin as much as the other characters and in the Conserver squad who were just basically introduced apart from Miwa, it gives you something to care about because Osama and Yuma are still kind of finding out something new, which has been the driver of the series so far.
And yeah, I mean, I call it convenient, but it's convenient in a good way. It's like, yeah, this is a really nice way to fit it in.
And it also signals which agents prefer which fighting style, giving us some memorable characters to anticipate.
Yeah. To go into more of the character stuff, there's lots of stuff I like here. Jin seeing himself in Yuma as like an extra motivation to get him into Border is really, really cute. And it's also like, Jeff definitely seems like the sort of mission statement of Yuma's character going forward of what he's about now.
It is very wholesome. Jin is a very interesting character. He has all the makings of being there front and center, but he prefers to stay in the background, and that kind of informs his personality greatly. His wish to create some fun times for Yuma is very heartwarming, as you said, but it's also very telling that he goes behind the scenes to do that, and he keeps it hidden that one of the implicit reasons for it is kind of Yuma's short lifespan, as we discussed the previous volume. And what's more, I think that there's a bit more going on in his head regarding Border's attitude to neighbors than he's letting on. I think just by forcing kind of Yuma's admission, he's normalizing neighbor presence in Border, and thus the tolerance of him. Tamakoma's neighbor engineer, which we have yet to introduce, but who was still revealed to be there, was the first step in that, and we see kind of the fruits of that way ahead in the future when, minor spoilers, another neighbor joins Border.
Yeah, in terms of the way people relate to the neighbor attacks, Jin definitely is very interesting, in that, like, Arashiyama had to explain to Miwa, just like, yeah, no, he's lost people to the neighbors as well, so the fact that he's still doing this means he must know what he's doing. I also think, like, Arashiyama being, like, a third party that Miwa can learn more about Jin through works, because he's clearly just too mad at Jin to, like, rationally talk to him.
I do love also how Arashiyama has this unwavering faith in Jin, because basically I'm the recolored version of him, so of course I have faith in him.
The amount of times I've written Jin instead of Arashiyama in these notes and had to correct it. It doesn't help that his other name is Jun, so I can't just write that. It has to be Arashiyama, the whole thing. I also thought his initial talking down of Miwa before they started fighting was very on brand. It's kind of this, he has that kind of vague, wishy-washy placation thing. It very much fits his role as a PR man. And this is followed off on by Izumi's assertion that he wouldn't even destroy abandoned buildings.
And then fucking Satori is the outlier here because he's like, ho ho ho, Oh, did you see my double snipe?
He's such a goofball, I love it. To go back to Kitora being funny, I think it's time for it to get cozy in the Arashiyama comments corner yet again.
Arashiyama comments corner.
Ashihara comments corner. No, the Arashiyama comments corner. I'm definitely not Jin, guys. Read my comments. So no, but it's like the one where it's talking about the little comics, the little after chapter comic strip of the Shunsaeki swimsuit spread of all the jump heroines, and how Kitora's just like, oh, I was strictly confessional, and she's just like on her bed, just like, oh, I look so good.
I do love that Ashihara's editor continues to be a massive horn dog. It was he who volunteered Kitora to be in the spread. That Ashihara, not Arashiyama.
Arashiyama actually wrote World Trigger. What a twist.
Oh, I can't. That Ashihara had to draw a comic of Kitora kind of justifying that and then finding herself sexy later. So, yeah, good for her. Do you think that Jin might be Arashiyama's alt account? Arashiyama is the professional account on Twitter, and then Jin is the lewd account.
It's his Super Smash Brothers recolor. Yeah, another comment I really liked was when it showed the bios for Kazuma Squad. Kikuchihara doesn't have likes, he just has hates.
Hates tomatoes, peppers, boiled fish, oysters. I do love it. He just hates everything. I do also like when Ashihara describes the color page he did with the Conserver Squad fight. He says, I use backlighting to make it look cool. I like how evil Tachikawa looks.
Yeah, this is the first time it might be the first time he uses this sort of technique, but it becomes very much a staple of how he does color spreads with the backlighting. It's very cool.
Yeah, I think he did it before, yeah.
Okay. The rejected storyboard for this one, so originally an Ilgar was meant to show up at the school, leading to a bit of aerial combat with Yuma, but the rest of the chapter was pretty much the same. I don't think this would have been bad, but I can also see why he did it the way he did. We got that cool moment of like Yuma using the walls to his advantage, and we got the aerial combat later with Kitora anyway, so...
Yeah, and the introduction and development of Kitora in that was very much needed, and I think I did prefer it how it turned out. It looks like Yuiga's personality was already in the works, since he likes expensive French cuisine and to be admired. They're amazing.
Izumi is a Persona 5 fan. It's nice to see. He likes all-out attacks. Miwa in the Jump Next strip, but he's the struggle of not having the sparkle. Maybe the secret ingredient is to shed your angst.
It also seems like they just wrote Snake on the design of the emblem. I would really like it if it was just the word Snake written on it, and that's just how it was in the manga.
What, like how Luffy signs his own signature? He just says me.
I didn't know Luffy could write.
Well, according to Bartolomeo's wall of signatures, he can, but this is not a One Piece podcast, so I should get back on topic.
Okay.
The absolute shade with Tachikawa's bio at the end is like he carries he's not embarrassed about wearing a black trench coat and carrying two swords despite being over 20. He lives for combat, but unlike Yonia, he also has a talent for combat. And he's barely taking enough classes to stay in college. Oh, man.
Yeah. Tachikawa would be just a millennial disaster outside of Border.
See,
I feel like.
I really like the way at the start of this volume Tachikawa seemed like this imposing force of nature rival who you don't want to mess with, and then by the end he's just kind of revealed to be a big kid. Like when he finds out that Jin is gonna be back in the rank wars, he's just like, "Oh, great to have you back! I can't wait to spar with you again."
And then Kazama's like, ugh. I like how Kadera has a very understandable reaction to his colleague's head being cut off, but Narasaka's like, stop freaking out, it's only a beheading. It's a, okay, I know we're in Triumph bodies, but still.
Toma reads these air currents with the sway of his pompadour. Trigger bullets are not affected by air currents. Since Izumi sticks the points of the bangs in his eyes, maybe he's not that smart. And also just his general sympathy with Kikuchihara and Utagawa's head-related exploits.
His moniker is Nick of Time.
Yes.
Any relation to the WMR host?
To go back to Kazuma, he's definitely the A-rank person who got the least character development here, so it's sort of, it makes a lot, it's nice that he is the one who's challenging Osamu here, so we get more with him.
Yeah, he's gonna get a lot of focus in Volume 5, and then in commenting some of the rank war matches, which I really like. So yeah.
So one thing I really want to see, because Jin's whole play was like he was actually storing way more Fujin ribbons than he was actually letting on. I'd like to see a fight where he actually has to exhaust all the Kagetsu ribbons at some point.
Assuming he's gonna have the Fujin at that time.
Yeah, or, okay, maybe not necessarily him, just someone doing it. We get Kinuta Desk Slam the second. It's becoming a bit of a staple.
I wasn't keeping track of that, but yeah, absolutely do that.
I think just because that first transition in chapter 3 was so funny, I'm just keeping track of it now. This is very much commented on in the volume, but both on a meta level and on a story level, it's cool that, like, we get this whole fight to demonstrate how valuable the Fujin is before Jin uses it as a bargaining chip to get Yuma into the border. And I also like that it's not just as simple as that. There's kind of a game of chicken with it, with like Jin and Kido basically trying to out-intimidate each other.
I didn't recap it, but because it didn't seem like a big note at the time. But I like how Kido says, "What if I just confiscate your trigger? I can just do that." And Jin's like, "Good luck with that. She noticed against you, you'd be basically forced to use armor, and which I know you don't want to do."
Yeah, I have a theory that Amo is the mysterious figure that killed Yugo, just because, like, the whole, he doesn't look human when he does that. Although this doesn't quite match the silhouette that's shown with Amo showing off his powers, so it's a little tenuous.
He'd have to be traveling to the world that Yugo and Yuma have been in, and I'm gonna say it's not likely, but
yeah, it's a bit far-fetched. It didn't seem like humans were involved with that particular neighbor world.
So I guess to transition into spoiler corner, I very much enjoy how Amo gets built up as this massive monster. We never see his powers. It's always whenever he fights, it's always off screen. Very much looking forward to maybe him being part of the away mission. I'm guessing that either they will keep Fujin in on Earth, or they will keep Amo on Earth, because they...
Yeah, I can see them not wanting to put all their eggs in one basket and wanting to reserve some things. I mean, on the one level, I'd kind of like to see Fujin in combat in the away missions, because I do want to see it used to its full, like, yeah. Because they seem to give it back to Jin quite liberally, just because he's good at using it. So I'd like to see Jin use it to its fullest capabilities. Another spoiler thing, because actually we got to spoiler comment just as I ran out of non-spoiler notes, so nice job there. But yeah, Kitora using the wires nicely sets up for teaching Osamu to do the same, and it's not really something you think about that much, because it's just like one incidental tactic. It's not like her main weapon.
Non-spoilery thing, but I'm really enjoying the dynamic where Kitora is jealous of Osamu being Scruffy Hottie's pupil. It's just Ashihara putting his serious character in comedic situations. It's just the best. I do love that kind of comedy, and Scruffy Hottie is completely oblivious to the whole thing, just like his namesake in School Rumble, Karasuma.
I would really like to have a post-Rank Wars chapter of Yuma reflecting on how he's found the Rank Wars, like, I'm really having fun now. It would be a nice bookend to what Jin wanted for him. Maybe a conversation with Jin about it, even.
Yeah, I would love that. Speaking of things like setup, foreshadows, I like Jin eliminating Kikuchihara the first. It kind of foreshadows that his side effect is pretty troublesome for an opponent who knows about it, and with it, he wouldn't be able to execute his plan, but because he'd be able to hear where the attacks are coming from, where the slashes that he planted will spring from. I think given how later on, what was his name? Enadora. Yeah, how Enadora's black trigger worked.
Enarudora.
Enedorado. How Enadora's trigger worked. It was kind of similar to Fujin in a sense, and I think Kikuchihara might might be useful in that, and it makes sense that he got eliminated.
Yeah. Tachikawa versus Jin is aloof calm versus aloof calm. The ultimate, to the max degree. I didn't realize that Jin was using a scorpion and not another Kogetsu until the explanation after the fight, just because he's using it as like a normal saber. But I think this makes a lot of sense given how much emphasis was put on Tachikawa's. So yeah.
In this case, it just happens that Fujin is in the shape in the shape of a Kogetsu. So yeah.
I found the 2-page spread of Kuga taking down the mock neighbor in the B rank wars a little underwhelming art-wise. Like, not, like, bad or anything, but just, it kind of, devoting a full-page spread to it, I was just like, oh, okay, speed lines, cool.
Just the positioning that we don't see the entire thing. We just see mostly Yuma on the right, and we don't really see the entirety of the slash. It is a bit underwhelming, to be sure.
But yeah,
I do love the 2-page spreads of Chica blowing a massive hole in the wall of Border HQ, especially with Annalise's wonderful lettering. I forgot exactly what it was, but I love the sound effect in that.
Yes, and I love her incredibly, like, apologetic, flustered response. Like, she had no idea that would happen.
Yeah. And then she's like, sorry.
Oh.
All right, if that's everything, then let's transition into our Q&A segment. We got one question from Randall, our devoted listener. It's a great question that's basically referencing what's introduced in this volume. So, what border trigger would you all use? And spoiler, what black trigger / neighbor trigger would you all pick? I choose Lightning and Lampress, respectively. I'm gonna set... this is mostly gonna depend on how much Tryon we have, so I'm proposing that our Tryon be proportional to our liver. How much alcohol we can take is basically how much Tryon we have. 1 pint Hoven.
Well, okay, see, I'm much less of a lightweight now, so I'm actually not doing too bad on that front. I'm gonna say, like, I think if it's just like if it's just an attack trigger, I'd probably use a Scorpion. I do really like the stretching property of it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was ranged, I'd probably go for like an explosive sniper thing like Chica. I really like the demolition angle.
So you would think you'd be an all-rounder?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
And then for the neighbor trigger, Yuma's is really cool. I like, at least, like, it doesn't even need to be all of them because it seems a bit overpowered to have all facets, but mainly the boost angle where he can, like, enhance other abilities.
Okay. I actually wrote down a position for me. I think I would prefer to be like a trapper slash shooter like Osamu. And for my main trigger, again, I don't know if this is how main and sub trigger works. Correct me if I'm wrong, but for the main triggers, I would have Ray Gust, especially for its shield mode. And instead of Asteroid, I think I'd go for Viper. If I'm going to be a trapper, then I think I need something like Asteroid is a good option. Hound and Meteor, not necessarily, because if I plant any traps, they would be likely to destroy them, or like my opponents could...
They didn't explain Meteor, I mean, they didn't explain Hound in this volume, did they?
I think they did. They did...
Or wait, is Hound the regular bullets? Hold on. Hoven needs to refresh himself.
No. Asteroid is the regular bullets.
Yeah, I thought they just explained Asteroid, Meteor, and Viper.
No, they explained Hound as well, I think. Hound is the one that tracks the opponent, and if it tracks the opponent, then if I said, like, any spider traps or something, then they would be destroyed, so that'd be useless. And in the case of Viper, I can set the exact trajectory before shooting, so if I train on it, it would be nice. For the optional triggers, I would use Bagworm. I would use Spider for the traps, Bagworm for not being seen on the radar, Grasshopper for easy escape, and Escudo so I can control the terrain more.
Yeah, just summon that mud wall.
For the black trigger... Oh, right. Mira's portal trigger is also a black trigger, so yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The black trigger I would use is Mira's portal trigger, because that would allow me to move...
Or as one of the translations I was following, because I had to do scans to bridge the gaps, called her Moira. I'm like, is she Irish? Oh, come to the portal. It's great on the other side of this. We don't want you around in Adora, really.
I love it. That's her voice now.
One more comment that I kind of want to walk back from an earlier episode.
Mm-hmm.
I made a comment which was like, I hope Ashihara doesn't succumb to power creep. And I don't know how I somehow unlearnt this before doing this episode, but power escalation is a neutral storytelling device. It does not make a story worse or better. AKA Reality Punch's video is bad. But yeah, just wanted to say, yeah, it doesn't really matter as long as the character writing and the fights are interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, and also Reality Punch Studios hates Usopp, so that's a bad take.
Damn you, Stefan. Yeah, I think that covers everything then.
Right then. Okay, that's going to probably do it for this episode of Duckface Diaries. So this was Volume 4, and thank you very much for listening.
So yeah, next time we'll be covering Volume 5, which covers chapters 35 to 43 and episodes 18 to 21.
Okay. Thank you very much for listening. You can listen to Duckface Diaries on anchor.fm/Wensleydale Cheddar. That's where all the links are. Either that or in the YouTube description if you're listening to this on YouTube. That's youtube.com/c/Wensleydale Cheddar. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, Breaker, Radio Public, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Google Podcasts, and probably something else which I don't know, but because Anchor distributes these without our knowledge. So I'm not complaining, but because I've got less work. But if you encounter something on a different platform and you say, aha, Wensleydale was lying, just let's say that I wasn't lying.
When we get to the point where someone is uploading us to the Android Podcasts app without us knowing, you know you've made it. But we'll see if that ever happens.
All right.
Also, follow us on Twitter, at Duckface Diaries. We have a Twitter account now.
Yeah, exactly. And our individuals' Twitters are at Wensley Cheddar and at Hoven with an H.
Yeah, and also just follow me for Usami posting and conspiracy theories about how Arashiyama actually writes World Trigger.
All right, and if you'd like to help me upload these or Manga Mosaic podcasts when we take a look at jumpstarts and one-shots and short manga old and new, consider supporting me on patreon.com/Wensleydale Cheddar. At the $1 tier, you get a shout-out and your name in the credits. At the $3 tier, you get to request a series to be reviewed on the Manga Mosaic podcast. And at the $6 tier, I'll draw you a World Trigger Duckface avatar like the ones we have here on YouTube. Yeah, each tier comes with a monthly manga thread or bonus podcasts covering Pokemon Sun and Moon, Platinum End, Assassination Classroom, Tokyo Ghoul, and Siren. Help us reach goals such as reviving a World Trigger Abridged or long-form video essays like a Demon Slayer one or a Samurai 8 one. Send us emails, questions, comments, suggestions at wensleydale012@gmail.com. You can also send us questions there to be covered on the show.
Oh.
And basically, whatever you send us, we will read out.
I appeared recently on the My Hero Academia podcast. I discussed the most recent 3 chapters of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, which, if you're a fan of World Trigger, is a really, even if you're not the biggest MHA person, I think you'll get into Vigilantes. It's a lot more grounded in its approach to combat, and the powers aren't all ridiculous. The powers are a bit more down to earth. So yeah, check that out. I'm on there. Kendra and the others are a lovely bunch.
Yeah, I've listened to a few episodes of theirs, especially the ones you've been on, and I do love Kendra's enthusiasm for any series, for any chapter she's covering. It brings a lot of energy to it. Alright then, so this was the Volume 4 episode of Duckface Diaries, and as always, it's time to bugger off!